and welcome back to my channel, where I'm going to cover the Monk's Way of Mercy class specialization from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, providing a brief description of the subclass, as well as explain and set up the various features gained. The Monks of Mercy do not represent what one might expect initially by reading the title of the class sheet, but instead are more equal to Angels of Life or Death. They are physicians who have to make the choices between who lives and who dies, essentially triaging a given patient to determine if they can be saved or are to be given a quick death. As a result, this class is a little more macabre than the one might expect from a monk class, but it is all based off the training they received that taught them how to work with life energies of living creatures. Now, monks are a class that will gain their class specialization at level 3. As such, I've covered everything up to level 2 in another video, and the other class specialization videos from the player's handbook cover a bit more details on how to actually deal with the base class itself. As a result, I will be focusing entirely on the Way of Mercy class during this video. I'll be sure to provide a link to those videos in the description below so that you can quickly access them if you need to. At this point, however, I want to look at leveling this level 2 monk to level 3 before we move on to dealing with the individual features. And in this case, I want to choose Way of Mercy. Now, the first feature that you will gain is called Implements of Mercy, which gives your character proficiency with the insights and medicine skills, as well as proficiency with herbalism kits. The feature also requires you to create a mask that is worn when executing the roles of a given Monk of Mercy, and you can choose to make use of the table provided with this feature, or make your own. So the first thing I'm going to do is ensure that under skills, we have proficiency in insight and medicine. So we already have insight and we already have medicine, so I don't need to worry too much about that. In relation to the mask, you're going to want to look at these and go over each of them and try to come up with something that would be your own, or just simply make use of these as you see here. I highly recommend you make one of your own, because that's going to give you the option to also define a little bit more about the order your character originally came from, as part of some additional character customizations that I've covered in other videos. I also want to ensure that I have the proficiency set up for the herbalism kit, which I do, and it may be that this skill automatically took care of all of that for us, or rather this feature. So with that out of the way, I don't have to worry about it too much. Also at Monk level 3, your character is going to gain the Hands of Healing feature that allows your character to make use of their chi for the purposes of healing others. By spending one ki point, your character will be able to heal another creature through touch by rolling their martial arts die and adding their wisdom modifier to the total of the roll. This means your character has to be within reach of a given creature you intend to heal, so this would imply within 5 feet depending on the reach of your character. Additionally, when your character makes use of Flurry of Blows, you can choose to forgo one of the unarmed attacks from Flurry of Blows and instead make use of this feature without any additional ki point expenditure, essentially giving up a bit of damage to help a party member or a creature in dire need of healing. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to our Actions tab. I'm going to throw this under the Way of Mercy group. And we notice that there is no healing here, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I add a healing effect. Now, to set the dice type that we are going to need for this particular healing, we need to go up to our monk table and look at the martial arts dice here. At level 3, we still have a 1d4. That changes as our character increases over time. So I would want to pick up a 1d4 and drop it into place here. Additionally, it's going to also add your character's wisdom modifier to that particular roll. So we want to ensure that we add wisdom to the stat roll. So how do you use Hand of Healing? Well, Hand of Healing works a little bit different than some of these others. Whenever you make an attack with Flurry of Blows, so let's say that I do my attack with the sickle, I hit, I then burn a ki point to make use of Flurry of Blows to do another attack, which, because it's an unarmed attack, I can make use of my monk weapon, which is a sickle here. So I do my damage. Now, the second attack you normally get with Flurry of Blows, you can choose to expend no additional ki points and instead say, I'm going to heal Ape 1. And there you go. That's how Hand of Healing would work. And the last feature that your character gains at Monk level 3 is called Hand of Harm, and it is more or less the opposite of the Hands of Healing feature, but this time it links with your overall means to do damage and less so with a specific feature. When your character connects with an unarmed strike, they can choose to expend one key point and inflict more damage via the martial arts die, plus your character's wisdom modifier. However, the damage type that will be dealt is necrotic damage, and it can only be used once per turn. Now, technically, you could potentially use this as part of the Flurry on Blows thing, but you have to expend an additional key point in order to be able to make use of the extra damage that you could do with one of your Flurry of Blow attacks. But you're not restricted to just Flurry of Blows. This description states an unarmed strike. So it's any unarmed strike that you do once per turn, meaning that if you do 2 attacks and then do Flurry of Blows, and all 4 of those attacks make use of unarmed strike, only one of those attacks will actually get the extra damage attached to it. So let's go ahead and set this up. I'm going to drop that into play, add it to our group. Oops. I actually wanted to minimize those 2 things. And we can see here that, again, it doesn't have the actual effect. In this particular case, we want it to add a damage roll. So I'm going to go ahead, add this, drag in our martial arts die, and set it up to use wisdom. Now, the only limitation is that you can use this once per turn. We don't have an option to actually limit that as a once per turn. It's rest, once, or daily. So we can't modify or prepare it that way to at least restrict some of the uses. So you're just going to have to remember that you can only use it once per turn. So how would you make use of Hand of Harm? Well, if you remember, Hand of Harm can actually go through and inflict wounds whenever you execute an unarmed strike. So the sickle is part of the monk weaponry. It is classified as an unarmed strike because it is classified as a monk weapon. That means that whenever I make an attack with the sickle, I can still apply this Hand of Harm. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to target the vampire. I'm then going to roll my attack, and hopefully I hit. That would be a miss, so let's make another attack roll here, just for the purposes of being thorough. What is it with today and rolling the same number twice? It seems to be happening quite a bit. Okay, let's just say that I actually hit. So I'm going to do my damage. But now I can also apply this. If I happen to have a second attack, and I make use of my unarmed strike again to make an attack roll, and this time I hit, all I have to do is roll this damage. I don't get to do Hand of Harm again. So that's how Hand of Harm works. Now keep in mind, you still have to expend a key point when you do that. So all you do is you click that to indicate that you've expended a key point. Now what happens if you make use of Flurry of Blows? Well, I don't have Flurry of Blows set up here. That's covered in part of the base class. But if I had used Hand of Harm as part of my initial attack with the sickle here, I would not be able to make use of Hand of Harm again for the rest of the turn. However, if I simply did an attack with the sickle or some other weapon, say this dart, and then decided that I was going to expend a key point in order to make use of Flurry of Blows, that could potentially trigger a use of Hand of Harm if you expend a second key point as part of that process. So that's how that would work. You would expend 1 point for Flurry of Blows and then a second point for Hand of Harm. But then you would only be able to hit with Hand of Harm on one of your attacks from Flurry of Blows. At Monk level 5, we need to look at increasing the martial arts die that is attached to Hand of Harm and Hands of Healing. So the first thing I'm going to do is pop open Hand of Healing, and I'm just simply going to right-click over the box where this dice is and make sure that I select this clear dice or the eraser-like looking like icon. I'm then going to increase this to a 1d6 because that's what our next dice roll is. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for Hand of Harm. At Monk level 6, your character will gain access to the Physician's Touch feature that allows you to extend the Hand of Healing and the Hand of Harm features even more. When your character makes use of the Hand of Healing feature, in addition to the healing, you will also be able to remove a disease effect, or you could remove blindness, deafened, paralyzed, stunned, or a poisoned effect. However, if your character chooses to use the Hand of Harm feature, they can add a poisoned effect to a creature that will last until the end of your character's next turn. So let's go ahead and set up this feature. I'm going to drag and drop this into place. Once again, it has no effects. So I'm going to go ahead, and in this case, I'm just going to add a normal effect. I'm going to call this Physician's Touch. I'm going to put a semicolon there, and then I'm just going to put Poisoned. And that is the effect that you would apply to an individual. And it will last for 1 round. It doesn't expire, and it can go on targets. Now, obviously, this is only going to come into play when you're dealing with the Hand of Harm feature, because with the Hand of Healing, you're removing effects, but you as the player won't be able to do that because you weren't the one who applied the effects. You'll have to ask the DM, I'm going to remove disease effect A from that particular character. So how do you use Physician's Touch? Well, that's going to depend entirely on whether you're choosing to use Hand of Healing or Hand of Harm. So with Physician's Touch, you don't expend an additional key point. What instead happens here is that let's say that I attack the vampire. I hit, so I choose to use Flurry of Blows. And as part of Flurry of Blows, I then decide to use Hand of Healing for Ape 1. Well, let's say Ape 1 also happens to have a disease effect attached to them. I can tell the DM I'm curing that disease effect. Or if they happen to have blindness or any of the other effects that I listed earlier, you can tell the DM I'm going to remove that one effect, and it only can affect one effect at a time. However, if you instead chose to use Hand of Harm as part of your initial attack, so let's say you made an unarmed strike here, you now have decided to burn a key point to activate Hand of Harm. Well, okay, so I hit, whatever, I have done my damage, I have now applied Hand of Harm, I can now apply a poisoned effect on that particular vampire. And it will last until the next turn. And every time you hit that vampire, you can apply that effect as long as you used Hand of Harm. At level 11, we need to look at increasing our character's martial arts die to 1d8. So we need to modify Hand of Harm and Hand of Healing, because at this point, that's the only effects that make use of this at this particular point in time. So I'm going to clear that dice, and I'm going to drop a 1d8 into there. And I'm going to do the same thing for Hand of Healing. And that's all we have to do. Also at Monk level 11, your character is going to gain access to the Flurry of Healing and Harm feature that continues to add flexibility to the Flurry of Blows feature while also extending some of the capabilities of the Hand of Healing and Hand of Harm features. When your character makes use of the Flurry of Blows attack, you can choose to convert both unarmed strikes into Hands of Healing uses. This means that you can dole out twice the amount of healing on average, and you would still not have to expend any more than a single key point that you initially spent on Flurry of Blows. However, your character could also choose to now add the damage from the Hand of Harm feature to that of an unarmed strike while executing Flurry of Blows and still only spend one key point that you originally spent for Flurry of Blows itself, thus removing the 2 key point usage that you would have had to have used prior. However, with this, your character could only add damage to one of the unarmed strikes, not both, so there is still that limitation that comes into play. But this isn't a feature that needs to be set up in any way, shape, or form. It just adjusts how you make use of features you already have. At Monk level 17, we're going to want to look at adjusting our Hand of Harm and Hand of Healing effects again by removing this particular dice and upgrading its martial arts die for both of them. There we go. And that would complete all of the martial arts die upgrades that we have to deal with. So let's focus on our last feature that we're going to gain. The last feature your character is going to gain at Monk level 17 is called Hand of Ultimate Mercy. And it will allow your character to raise a creature from death if it has died within 24 hours of when the touch was applied. This does not mean you're bringing something into an undeath state, but are fully healing them and returning their spirit to their body, bringing them completely back to life. They will also receive 4d10 plus your character's wisdom modifier in total hit points, and will have the following effects removed from their being if they died while these effects were active: blinded, stunned, poisoned, deafened, or paralyzed. And yes, that does mean that if they had all of those effects, then all of those effects would be removed. However, it is going to cost your character 5 key points in order to execute this feature, and they will need to complete a long rest before they would be able to make use of this feature again. So let's go ahead and add this to our action sheet, because there is some aspect of this that will need to be set up to be able to help you out and automate a few things. Primarily, I'm looking at the healing aspect of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new heal effect and modify that. So it's going to be 4d10. So I want 4 of these. I'm going to hold down the leftmost button, pick one up, and then right click 3 more times to add 4 of those. And then I'm going to set this up to use our wisdom modifier for a total of 4d10 plus 3 hit points that someone will regain when they are resurrected. Additionally, I'm going to modify this for 1 daily use. And that ensures that if you use it, it goes away until you complete a long rest. Now, this character currently doesn't have the full complement of key points that they should have at this level. Essentially, they should have equal to their level, so they are level 17, so there should be 17 of those. So when I use that, I should also tick off 5 key points to indicate that they were used. So let's say that this ape died within 24 hours of when your character came across it, or literally just died as part of this combat. Well, your character could walk over to it and make use of the ultimate hand, or hand of ultimate mercy. Wow, that's a tongue twister today. And heal them 4d10 hit points of damage, plus their initial hit points, or plus 3 hit points. So this is going to heal them fully and completely. It's going to bring them back to life. That's essentially how that feature would work. So it can be done on any creature you want, but generally you would only use it on your party members, or on an NPC that you were trying to save. However, that does bring us to the end of this particular subclass, and the monks of this subclass are an odd take of a monk's monastic tradition. But I can see how it makes sense in a way, and I'm curious enough about this class that I might actually look into playing it if I get a chance. It definitely gives me the vibes of a plague doctor, with the mask and the choices they have to make around life or death, and I do admit I find that slightly unsettling, but it would almost be a perfect character class for something like the Curse of Strahd campaign, or other campaigns set in such a gothic, steampunk, or even horrific style. But this does bring us to the end of this particular video, and I hope you found it useful and informative, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I wish to thank you for taking the time to watch this particular video. I hope you found it informative and useful to familiarizing yourself with Fantasy Grounds in general, and that you had fun in the process. If you found the video useful and you liked the content of the particular video, go ahead and click that like button to let me know. And if you have any questions specific to the topic covered by this particular video, or just have some comments in general, please feel free to post something in the comments section, and I will do my best to respond to any questions that are asked. Additionally, I do release content quite regularly, and it's generally specific to Fantasy Grounds or 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons at this time. So if you'd like to be notified when new videos come out, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell to ensure that notification is sent to you when I release a new video.